Who am I kidding? Doesn't need this. It's a Toyota. Welcome, nerds, to the In the Shop portion where we do a deep dive of what's under the hood of this bad boy and what's underneath in the suspension portion. So this is the all-new Lexus LX600, or for those that are, there's a lot of Toyota nerds out there, I'm one of them, so welcome to the club. This is the 300 series Land Cruiser is basically what this is. Based on the all-new TNGA F platform. And for those who really want to nerd out, because a lot of people are asking, why this over the Sequoia? Here's one reason why. This is a J-spec SUV. A lot of people care about that. This is actually built in the Yoshiwara plant. If you're a Land Cruiser fan, you know what that means. You know that's where it actually is built, and it's a specialty shop, and they get a lot of things right. So, what's underneath me, or what's underneath the hood and what's behind me right here? It's the V35A FTS. Toyota wants you to think it's a 3.5 liter. That's why the 35 is in there. It's actually a 3.4 liter dual overhead cam twin turbo. First appeared in 2017 in the LS500, but here it's the same thing as in the Tundra and as the Sequoia. It is the same. Good news is it's direct and port injected. Toyota, like Ford and some other manufacturers, have figured out that you just need to do that. You need both, and you need the best of both worlds in every engine. We get the same thing here. So no carbon buildup issues there. It's 3.37 bore and 3.94 strokes, so it's a little under square. You get a longer stroke and a little bit shorter bore. So it's a little torquey, and you'll see that in the actual numbers. So 409 horsepower at 5,200 RPM, but 479 pound-feet of torque starts out, and the turbos help this too, at 2,000 RPM. So it's just there all day long. Now, it's paired to a 10-speed Aishin transmission. 7th gear is your 1-to-1 ratio, and you have 3 overdrives, which is why you can get the EPA rating it gets, which claims to be 17 city, 22 highway, 19 combined. I'm here to tell you that we got 21 at best. That's the closest I could get to hypermiling. I drove the speed limit, but I've had it in eco mode, and I was not being a maniac. The rest of the time, driving normal, it was in the 15s. I'm just gonna tell you, it's in the 15s. Look, it's a Land Cruiser. That's what Land Cruisers do. They don't get good mileage. 0 to 60 times. Lexus says you can do it 0 to 60 in 6.9. We got it in 6.4. And that's on 93 octane, which is interesting because on Lexus's media website, they recommend minimum 95 octane. I don't know about you, I don't know where you can find 95 octane. The closest I can find around here is 93. Usually it's 91 if you're lucky. Sometimes only 89. For those that are worried about premium fuel, recommended it's on the door, it's on the fuel door, and I'm gonna avoid my warranty. Look, here's what I'm here to tell you. Don't worry about it. Every car in the past 20 years with wideband O2 and NOx sensors, put whatever fuel you want in it. You might not hit your horsepower ratings, you might lose a little mileage. It's not gonna hurt your engine, just put what you want in it. And we proved it with our good 0 to 60 times. It's also good, all that, the Aishin and that horsepower and that torque rating and this new TNGA F platform is good to tow 8,000 pounds. And what's really incredible, because it is Land Cruiser based, it can do all this and it can off-road. Brian's gonna talk more about that, but before we turn it over to Brian, one of the reasons it's good at that is this F Sport package with the 22s also gets you a Torsen limited slip out back, which is helpful. And like all the other Land Cruisers since 1998, you get a Torsen center diff that locks, and that helps as well. Now, let's turn it over to Brian and get to the goodness that's going on there with, well, there's just a lot of fun stuff. Let's go check it out.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, my favorite part, the nuts and bolts, where we get to nerd out properly. And as always, we start with the rubber. Roll it in. Jeez Louise. All right, this doesn't fit on camera because these are 22s. This is a 265 50/22. They're Dunlap Grand Trex. Look at that. That's a highway tire. Look at the mud. We found out today that it's not the best in the mud, but it does get the work done. Also, with the 50 series sidewall, it does crash a little bit when you're driving this thing around. Check out our road test for that, but it's not as bad as you would think. Also, we put this thing on the scales, and the weight of this wheel and tire is just over 78 pounds. Didn't even crack 80. We're really surprised by that. These are usually close to 100 pounds for a 22-inch wheel and tire. Now, let's talk about the front end and what's special here. First of all, yes, it shares a bunch of the Sequoia. It's a 300 series, just like it. No, it's not really the same. The wheelbase is actually 10 inches shorter. That's a big deal in parking lots and off-road. That means your breakover angle is way better, and that's just gonna help everywhere. Now, the trade-off is that it's not as good at hauling your family around. The second row is a little bit tighter. That's just part of it. More importantly, this has AHC. That's the hat trick of this vehicle. AHC is active height control and uses a hydro-pneumatic system that adjusts ride height. It is not riding on air like Land Rovers of yesteryear or Ram trucks. It doesn't use that system. It uses hydraulic fluid. There is also an air pump that helps it as well, but it is not your conventional airbag. As you can see, this looks like a normal shock, but it has a hydraulic line going in the front and also an active damper actuator on the top. What the system can do is it can adjust ride height on the fly, it can adjust spring rate on the fly based on hydraulic fluid, and it uses 3 pneumatic chambers per damper to get that done. It also has adjustable dampers. That's the active valve with the actuator on top of it. That can actually change, kind of like on a coilover for a race car. Usually there's 30 clicks of adjustment. It's that kind of deal here. It changes valving only in the damper itself. So ride height, what can you really do with that? The actual ground clearance on the normal mode, in mode, is 8.9 inches. Look, that's up there with the Subaru Outback. Not terrible. Not anything crazy though. I mean, most pickups from that neighborhood, pretty normal. Luckily, you can increase that thing an additional 7 inches. Do the math on that, that's insane. That's a huge amount of ground clearance, and we put it to the test. Holy cow, does it work. It's really, really good. Also, if you have your mother coming along who doesn't like tall things to get in and out like our mother, you can drop it an additional 2 inches from that 8.9. Pretty impressive, very active system, works well. We've all seen on the road that it rides better than we thought, but it does still crash with the 22s. Let's not get muddied up in that. Now, approach angles. On that 8.9 inches of ground clearance, the traditional standard height approach angle and departure is 25 degrees approach, 20 degrees departure. This also has a stubbier rear end than the Sequoia, so there's a little bit better departure angle. That is awesome, that makes a difference. We didn't rub at all on our off-road testing. When you jack that thing up 7 inches, that thing jumps to 27.4 and 26.3 departure. That's up there with the best of them. That's Jeep territory. Now that we've talked about the front with a coilover design, let's hop in the back and see what's different back there. Taking that back, the first thing you're gonna see is a divorced spring and strut. They are not coilover like the front end is. Also, it's a stick axle or live axle, meaning it's not independent rear. And look, all of the Boulevard plush cruisers, your Range Rovers, your Mercedes, well, not the G-Wagon, but most of these guys are hanging out with independent rear. But I'm here to tell you, this thing handles great. It has no complaints in my mind, and that's partially because of the 4-link design. It has twin uppers and twin lower control arms, controlling it forward and back. Also a track bar or panel bar controlling it laterally, side to side, in relation to the body. Gets it done, no complaints. Something you don't see back here is going to be the KDSS system that is available on the 4Runner, as well as some other GX Lexus products of the past, which allows the sway bar to be adaptive and adjustable to allow for more articulation. This doesn't have that, and look, we twisted this thing. It doesn't need it. No problem there, no love loss. You do have the same type of shock on the rear that you do on the front. It allows you to raise and lower and also adjust dampening and spring rate internally with its hydraulic fluid. In fact, you see this line right here coming in? That's actually feeding from the top, and that's adjusting everything using some pumps mounted on the external side of the frame rails. And yes, it is a full frame, no unibody here. Something else that you don't see stateside that you do get overseas in the Land Cruiser itself, there is no locking rear differential, which is a real bummer. I wish that had this, but you know what? In our testing, with the modes that are available, it just doesn't freaking matter. Even on 22s, this thing was awesome. So, all that covered, we thank you for watching. If you have anything you'd like us to include in these technical reviews, let us know. We love doing these. It's the nerd part of our show, and it's one of the most fun things that we do. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you on the next one.